Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Coffee with Jim podcast. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to talk about making your dreams come true with your own business. If you've ever been challenged to clearly articulate your dream life, today's podcast is for you. All right, everybody, let's get into it. Welcome to today's Coffee with Jim podcast. I've got my coffee. I hope that you've got yours as well. This is season 2, episode 3. And again, we're going to talk today about making your dreams come true with your own business. You're here to learn about how to build a business. But also, we're going to talk today about your goals and your dreams. I think, and I've seen so many times, that as we come to our adult life, we've literally forgotten how to dream big. Look at the children in your life. They know how to dream big. They want to be astronauts and superstars and athletes. They want to be in Hollywood. They want to live their dream lives. But by the time we become adults, we've either forgotten that, been talked out of it, had it taken away from us, or pounded out of us. I remember that when I arrived at the position of starting my business, the business I have today, I had literally forgotten how to dream. I was forced and challenged to reaccess some of those techniques and tools. I was feeling like I didn't know how to dream anymore, and I had to relearn that. Much the way you have to restart after you haven't worked out in a long time, you haven't been to the gym, you haven't been on a run, you haven't been in shape, and you feel like saying, wow, it is so hard to get started. That's what it's like to dream again. And when you build a home-based business, your dreams can come true if you know what a successful business looks like, first of all. And I'm going to talk about that really to get us started, because ultimately today on the podcast, we're going to talk about how to dream, how to reimagine a future radically different than your past and your present, but to get access to the reality, to dream it and then realize it, well, you need to do that through your business. And I don't know other ways to do it. I know how to do it through this business. And that's what I'm here to teach you. And that's why you're having a cup of coffee with me. So we're going to talk about how to realize your dreams through your business, right? So let's talk about, first of all, that the ability to realize your dreams is going to come from having an ever-expanding organization of men and women around the world that are building their own business within your business. See, this creates leverage and passive income. This is the direct sales model. This is why you're here with me on the podcast. This is the model that I used to create my dream lifestyle. This is the model I've used to get time freedom and financial freedom for myself and my family. This is the model I use to build a legacy, to leave my mark. This is the model I use to open the door for other people to walk through and have their dreams come true. But it only works if you know how to do it. And again, for the purposes of our podcast, for the purposes of you and I having this conversation today, we're talking about how to realize your dreams. I'm going to teach you I'm going to break that down, teach you how to do it. But we're going to do it through building your business. And it isn't magic. It's a set of simple processes that make it possible. So today, before I get into how to learn how to dream again, how to realize those dreams, first, let's get past the feeling that you can't have this type of business success because maybe you've struggled to recruit distributors yourself. Like I just said, if the success comes from having an ever-expanding organization of men and women around the world, that means that you've got to get that ball rolling. You've got to know how to recruit people into your business and then how to achieve duplication in that recruiting. And duplication, if you're new, simply means that the new people that you're bringing into the business can do the same things relatively simply and easily. That is what we're talking about. Can they do those things that you just did? You recruited them. Could they turn around and recruit somebody else? You showed them this incredible product. Could they turn around and do that same presentation? That's duplication. And for your business to grow exponentially around the world, you need to master duplication. And before there's anything that can duplicate, you need to be good at recruiting, because duplication is multiplication. Well, 0 times 0 is 0. So multiplication only matters once you have some numbers upon which to multiply. And to have the numbers upon which to multiply, we first have to start with making sure you know how to recruit people. And in my book, On Purpose, you will see that I've outlined the system. It's really a very simple system. We always, in my team, we talk about it like a baseball diamond. First base is exposure. Second base is following up with people. Third base is getting that interested prospect involved with another person, a third party, someone else that can answer their questions, to act in the role of expert, someone that can answer their questions and help them take the first steps to getting started. And then home is, of course, signing them up and starting to train them to duplicate that same thing. So I'm not going to do a whole training today on running those bases. As a matter of fact, I take about a page in the whole book. I spend 200 pages in the book helping the readers understand why some people become millionaires and some people don't, in the very same opportunity, with the very same compensation plan, with the very same products. Why do some people become millionaires and some people don't? Well, I spend 200 pages on that and 1 page on the system, because we all have the same system, the same product, the same compensation plan, and yet some people have massive success and others do not. So it can't be the compensation plan, it can't be the system, it can't be the product if those things are the same for each of us. And I realize that many of you that are participating today and listening to the podcast are in different companies, but it's the same thing in your company. Look at yourself, look at someone else. If you've made $1 million in your company, you know that there's people around you that have not, but they're in the same company with the same compensation plan, with the same product. And maybe you're new or you're struggling in your company and you're looking around yourself and you're seeing people that have had massive financial success. Again, remember, same company, same product, same compensation plan, same marketplace. Some people have massive success and some people do not. The reality is, it's not that complicated, but we like to complicate it. We like to get in our own way. It is our nature to talk ourselves out of success. Okay, remember this. Your opportunity represents change for the prospect. Remember this, first of all, your opportunity represents change for you. But when you're recruiting, when you're looking to start to build your business and build distribution around the United States and Canada, around the world, remember, you're recruiting people into an opportunity, and the opportunity represents change for the prospect, and not everyone is ready for change. Even if, this was something really hard for me to understand, even if they really need change, that can be so frustrating. We need change. People need change. And yet they won't take advantage of that change. And then we feel rejected by that. And that's why I wanted to spend a few minutes before I get into my philosophy on how to ignite your ability to dream again and focus on a future different than your past. Let's talk about, because the way you're going to reach those dreams is by having a successful business of distributors all over the world. And the way you're going to have a business of distributors all over the world is to understand how to recruit people and why some people join and why some people don't. And I can break down every prospect into 4 categories. And I think this will be helpful for you. And again, remember, your opportunity represents change for the prospect, and not everyone is ready for change. I just want you to, let's just take a moment and do a deep breath in and then let it out. And remember that not everyone that you present the opportunity to is ready for change, even if they really need the change. Here's my 4 categories of prospects. Category A. This is someone who's both informed and interested. Write this down. I hope you're taking notes. Informed and interested. Now, I'm going to explain this to you, because informed and interested and variations on those 2 words are going to be part of every one of these categories. So what is informed? In my mind, the informed prospect understands the opportunity. Maybe they've seen a video presentation, you've had them dial into a sizzle call, they've been to a live presentation, maybe you had them on a Zoom with someone that did a presentation. They understand the full scope of the opportunity. They've seen the products that you offer, They've seen the compensation plan. They know what their responsibilities would be for getting started. For example, is there a startup kit? Is there a certain amount of product that they have to purchase to get started? They understand the opportunity. They've seen the presentation. That, in my mind, is informed. That is an informed prospect. Well, my first category, what I call category A, is informed and interested. So they're informed, we've established that, and they're also interested. They have a desire for the change that your opportunity represents, and they're mentally ready to actively begin the journey for that change. They're clear that they want change, and they're willing to begin taking the steps towards that change. Whatever business you're in, you're listening to this podcast, you were category A when you signed up. You were informed, you understood the opportunity. You knew what you were signing up for and agreeing to, and you were also interested. There was some desire within you for change, and you were willing to make that change, and it was the time in your life where you could actively begin the journey for change. Category B. Let's just dive into this a little bit further. I won't drag this out, I promise, but I want you to understand every person on your list, and I hope you have a list of every person you know. Every person you know, every referral from a person you know, every person you meet from a social media conversation, every person you interact with is in one of these four categories. And once you can start seeing how to sort people and allowing them through your interactions to show where they belong, in other words, let them sort themselves, then you won't feel rejected. And recruiting will become fun because you'll understand you're not being rejected by somebody. They're just, well, let's get into it. But, who joins your business? Well, category A, informed and interested. So what's category B? Let's do this. We'll call that uninformed and interested. Well, what could that be, Jim? Uninformed and interested? Well, they're open. See, they're interested. They have a desire for the change. And I love that word open. I always use that when I'm talking to somebody. Now, that might be in person. That might be over social media, texting somebody like on LinkedIn. I say, are you open to taking a look at an opportunity? I love that question. Are you open to taking a look at an opportunity or some variation on that? I mean, it's not a script. I just want you to be natural. But the question is, are they open? Are they open? Some people are not open. They say, no, I'm not open. People have asked me, are you open to taking a look at an opportunity? Well, my answer right now is a polite, no, I'm not open. And by the way, I'm not open because I'm rock solid focused on supporting my business, my team, growing my business. Many of you that know me, I have a very clear goal to become 7-figure per year earner in my business, to earn over $1 million per year in my business. That is my current goal that I'm working towards. That's what I'm focused on. That's what my vision boards, that's what my affirmative actions, words all over the house say. That's what my goal is. So I'm not open because I'm engaged in something. And you might say, well, yeah, but I'm uninformed. That's right. I'm not actually interested in being informed because I'm not open. But category B is interested. A lot of the folks that we want to recruit, that we want to get into category A, which is they're interested, of course, but they're informed. You're never going to recruit someone. They're not going to sign up if they don't understand the opportunity. So you sign up category A prospects, but a lot of those people start out as category B prospects because they're interested, they're open, but they're not informed yet. And how do they get informed? Well, you take them on that journey around the bases. Like I said, you invite them to take a look at a presentation. They watch that presentation. You get them on the phone with someone that can answer their questions so that they can get signed up. But for somebody to get from category B to category A, you have to establish whether or not they're open and willing to take a look. So the question is, are you open? And that's category B. They're uninformed, which is okay. They don't have to be informed. It's actually better if they're uninformed. We don't want them to be informed. We want them to be interested. And these are people you can recruit because you move them from uninformed and interested to informed and interested. Now let's take a look at category C. This is where I would be if you brought me your opportunity. I am uninformed and uninterested. So that person's not open. They're not looking at change. And by the way, again, even if they should change, even if they need to make a change, they're just not ready. They're uninformed about your opportunity and they're uninterested. And because they're uninterested, it's going to be really hard to get them to category A. You know how people say that they were pestered, bothered, chased by a friend or a family member for a home-based business? These are category C people. They're not interested. And we think, well, if they would become informed, that they would be interested. This is what we tell ourselves. You know, if my brother would just watch the presentation, he would want to do this. He would go from a C to an A. No, it's just not true because they're not open. They're not looking for change. Maybe they should change. Maybe they need to change, but they're not looking for change. And you can be frustrated by that, or you can understand that's the category that person's in. Now, following up with people is really designed to find out if they're willing to change categories. Because not being open, being unopened, not being willing to make a change is often a temporary place. It just might not be the right time for that person. So when I'm professionally following up with people, I'm following up to see if things have changed in their lives, if they're now interested. Are they still a category C, or did they move up to category B where they haven't seen my presentation, they don't know all of the details, but now they're open. You know, they're willing to look at opportunities because something in their life has changed. I'll give you some great examples. There are times in people's lives they're not willing to change because they're happy where they are, or they think they're happy. They're focused on other things and they're distracted with other things, and I'm going to get to that. And so they're not looking for change, but then all of a sudden something happens. They get married and they feel this need to make a change. They get divorced. They're expecting their first child. They have a child that's in the latter years of high school and they're expecting them to go to college, and there's a financial responsibility for that. Or maybe they've had a baby at home and now that kid is going into school full time and they have new space in their lives. Maybe they just are starting to near retirement and they realize that they don't have anywhere near the savings they should have had. Maybe they recently read a book and were inspired, or they met someone that's had great success and they could see that they would enjoy having that success too. That's why we follow up with people, because category C people become category B people. They become open over time. So never be afraid to follow up with people, but understand they're just in one of these categories. And then there's category D. And we just, we don't like this category. Most of us, this is what frustrates us more than anything. We think category C people, they're uninformed and uninterested. Like, oh, if they would only see it, then they would be interested. But category D, this is the tough one. They're informed and they're just flat out uninterested. I mean, we got them to see the presentation, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't speak to them the way it speaks to you and me. I've shown people this presentation plenty of times over the years, and it just wasn't what they were looking for. It just didn't speak to them. They didn't get it. It didn't land on them. And it didn't make them feel the way it made me feel. It didn't speak to them the way it speaks to me. And I had to learn that is okay with me. And again, maybe it speaks to them. Maybe they could see themselves, but because they're not mentally prepared to change, they resonate as uninterested, not open, not looking for change, even though they do see the potential. I've worked with a lot of folks. I've prospected a lot of folks that are like, yeah, that business model makes perfect sense. And a lot of times they'll buy my product, which is a victory, right? But they'll say, the model just doesn't, I just can't see myself involved. I'm just not interested. And they'll say different things about they don't have the time, or they don't think they'd be good at sales. And I'm going to get into that. But whatever it is, they're uninterested. They're not open. They're not open. They're not ready to make a change. They're not interested in making a change, but they're informed. And now they know about your product, and they know about your opportunity, and they know what you do. And also keep in mind, category D people can change. It's okay to follow up with them. Often they'll buy the product. Now, in my business, I have found that if I can get people to use the product and enjoy that product and get value from the product and see how it's saving them time and money, heartache and headache, that they do often soften because they could see themselves maybe not actively building the business and making it a focus like I do, but just to casually refer people and receive the compensation for that. And that's not a bad deal either. That can often more than cover the cost of the product for them on a monthly basis. So category D people can get involved eventually. Category C people can as well. But understand, for them to be involved, whether they're a D or a C or a B, they have to move to A. They have to be informed and interested. They have to understand the opportunity and have a desire for the change. And the reason I spend the time on this in the podcast, and I started thinking as I was thinking about what we're going to talk about next, which is really what I wanted to get into today, which is how to dream, how to focus on your future, how to envision a future and then go after it. I had to look at it through this lens of, well, to get where you need to go, you have to build a team. You have to build distribution. You have to get that geometric progression as it's talked about in the 4-Year Career, which is a great book, by the way. Hopefully everyone here has read The 4-Year Career by Richard Brooke. Fantastic book about geometric progression and how to build this type of home business where you get distribution all over the globe from what you start with, which is recruiting and that ABCD. And anyway, that was my point, was I wanted to establish that first. I don't want to pretend you're not going to recruit to build this business. You're going to recruit to build this business, because that's the power of it. Recruiting is opening the door so other people can have access to the opportunity. You're paying it forward. Someone opened that door for you. You're excited about it. You're learning. You're a student of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. You're a student that wants to learn how to do this at a high level. And that means that you can open the door to other people and they can do this at a high level and their dreams can come true. But now that you understand what are the 4 categories, that there is no rejection, there's just people that are not ready yet. There's people that don't know what we do, and we have to help them know what we do. And there's some people that are not willing to know what we do because they're just not interested in change. And there's many people that are just not going to get started. And we are not chasing or convincing people. We're not focusing on a handful of people and trying to change their mind. We're sorting. That's what professionals do when they build a home-based business, when you're building distribution all over the world. Now, that's the mechanics of building distribution, of building leverage and passive income in your business. Let's talk about how to dream again, because if you don't understand what can change, you probably won't do the daily activity. Malcolm Forbes says, when you cease to dream, you cease to live. So let's learn how to envision a future, number one. But more importantly, let's learn how to go get it. So hopefully you're still taking notes. You've got your notebook out. We're going to go through 3 questions that will help you to activate the part of your brain that is inspired to dream. First of all, and these are the 3 questions you're going to answer for yourself. Question number 1. Question number 1 is simply this: what do I want? What do I want? And when you write this down, don't just say money, because that isn't the answer. And I know I've talked about money, and I've talked about my goal is to build my business to $1 million a year. But don't just say money, because that's not the answer. The answer is going to be around, what does the money represent? And Thomas Edison said famously in a quote, if we all did the things we're capable of doing, we would literally astound ourselves. Now, when you say, what do I want? And you talk about this in terms of financial success, you have to drill down into what that financial success would look like. For example, do you want to quit your job? Maybe you want to quit your job. If you want to quit your job, write that down in your notes. I want to quit my job. I want to be my own boss. See, when I got started in my business, my first dream was not to be my own boss. I wanted to be my own boss, of course. Obviously, that was powerful for me. But my first goal was to get my money back, because I couldn't afford to get started, but I did it anyway. That few $100s it cost to get started in my business was a lot of money to me. I was behind on every bill. I had no credit, no space left on my credit cards. I was behind on everything. I'd borrowed money from people, so there was nobody else that I could borrow money from. And I decided to just get further behind. I figured if I use that as the reason to not get started, what was ever going to change in my life? I mean, I needed to change. I needed to be in a position where a few $100s wasn't such a challenge for me. So I decided in that moment to bet on myself. And I think that's a key component of learning how to dream again, is to look within and say, I'm going to bet on me. And so I got started, just like all of you have. For some of you, it was easy. For some of you, it was a challenge like it was for me. And so my first goal was to get my money back, to get even on that money. That was my first goal. And then ultimately, my real goal was to be my own boss. So for me, that was $400 a week. And I had a full-time job delivering furniture, a part-time job working in a retail store around my full-time schedule, trying to make ends meet. But I could get out of both of those jobs at $400 a week. That was the price of my freedom. And that's what I wanted. I wanted the freedom to be my own boss. See, I didn't just want the money. It wasn't the $400. It was the freedom. That's what I want you to write, is what do you want? Do you want freedom? And yes, money makes the freedom possible. Do you want choices? For example, maybe you want the choice of having your children in a better school. Maybe you'd like to move to a safer neighborhood. Perhaps you'd like a more reliable vehicle. I remember every morning, especially in cold weather, up here in New England where I live, I never had cars that I could count on. And every night, I would think about the weather, and if it was going to be the kind of weather that might be a challenge to get my car to start in the morning. And back in those days, there was things you could buy and install in your car. There was a block heater for your engine block. There was oil pan heaters, and they would plug into your house electricity just to give you another shot at having a car that would start on the first try in the morning on these cold mornings. And I remember I'd put a blanket, a sleeping bag blanket, over the hood of the car and have the car plugged into the oil pan heater, just hoping that when I went out there in the morning, the car would start. And on a lot of days, it didn't. And that represented a tremendous challenge for me because I couldn't afford to have a tow truck come and jump the car. I couldn't afford to have a car that didn't start and a day I couldn't get to work. And these are all really frustrating things for me. So one of the things I wanted was a car that started on the first try every time, because that represented safety to me and the ability to get where I needed to go safely and to not let people down when I was supposed to be somewhere. I wanted a home in a safer neighborhood. I wanted for my family to have the best things like great schooling. So what do you want? That's question number one. And write it in terms of not the money, not the amounts of money, but what does the money represent? And believe me, take the time and always add to these three questions and answer them. Number two, what would my life look like if I could have exactly what I want? Stephen Covey says all things are created twice. There's a mental creation, that's the first, and a physical creation, that's the second. The physical creation follows the mental, just as a building follows a blueprint. If you don't make a conscious effort to visualize who you are and what you want in life, then you empower other people and circumstances to shape you and your life by default. That quote means a lot to me because we have to learn that we are in total control, first by creating in our mind what it'll look like, but then being able to realize it in the physical world around us by going after it. So in question two, what would my life look like if I could have exactly what I want? Let's take the answers from number one and put those in the present tense, right? When you say, I would like for my kids to go to a safer school, what does that school look like? Where is it? Who are the teachers? What time would you get up and bring your children to that school? Because maybe there's no bus to the private school. If you say, I want to live in a safer neighborhood, where is that neighborhood? What would your life look like? What's the front porch of that home look like? Where's the mailbox? Are you on a cul-de-sac? Are you out in the countryside without neighbors around you? What would your life look like when you have exactly what you want? Maybe for you, the value of becoming your own boss is to not have to get up with an alarm clock. Perhaps you like to sleep in. Maybe you like to work in the evenings and not so much in the mornings? What will your life look like when you get exactly what you want? Get crystal clear on this. I think one of the challenges most people have is allowing themselves to picture their future different than their present. And the reason is because as we've learned to stop dreaming, what we've learned is to protect ourselves from disappointment. And it seems like a completely reasonable, it seems like a completely adult, it seems like a completely grown up way to behave. But it's a learned behavior. We've learned it from other people that have stopped dreaming. We've watched other adults in our lives stop dreaming. Now, they don't say, hey, I stopped dreaming. They say that's not realistic. They say you're going to be disappointed. They say that's for someone else and not for me. And we learn that behavior from them. And then before you know it, we're doing the things they're doing. And unfortunately, before too long, we have the life that they have. That's why children that start out wanting to be astronauts and athletes end up punching a clock. Not because they dreamt of doing those types of activities, not because they dreamt of living in a dangerous neighborhood and driving an unreliable vehicle, but because by slowly but surely, their ability to dream was chipped away by well-meaning adults that were in some cases telling them to be more realistic. But in other ways, we're just living and modeling a behavior that said there was nothing worth dreaming about. And there was no dream worth fighting for. When I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that put me on this journey to being a business owner and to having passive income and financial success and time freedom, one of the things, I was inspired by the book, but one of the things I don't talk about as often is I was angry about the book. I was angry because what I had thought was the truth, about how the world works, I found out in reading this book was just my truth. See, when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I learned that the poor and the middle class teach their children something completely different than what rich people teach their children. See, wealthy people are teaching their children about going to college and leveraged and passive income, about investments and about building for the future. They're showing them a world of possibility that I just never saw. I was taught that those things were for other people, that those results were for people from different families and other neighborhoods and folks that had a leg up or somehow had an advantage that I didn't have. I didn't learn about financial success. I didn't learn about the 4 quadrants that Robert Kiyosaki taught about in his books. I didn't learn about any of that growing up. And I became angry when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that I had been led to believe that the world worked a certain way, and the ability for me to make that change, to go and do what can be done, was tremendous for me. And now I model a behavior, I model a way of life that is described as the wealthy parents, the wealthy dad in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We own businesses and we have passive income. We have property and we think bigger and dream bigger. And it all started with an awareness that what I was taught growing up wasn't the only way to live your life. My point, ladies and gentlemen, is be careful what you're modeling to the people around you, the children that you want to inspire. Go after your dreams. Don't just tell them they can do it, but model it by going after it yourself. Build that resilience and that ability to dream into the people around you by being a dreamer, by being somebody that is willing to craft a future in their mind first, so that it can show up in the physical world second. That's number 2. So again, number 1, what do I want? And not just the money. Number 2, what would my life look like if I could have exactly what I want? And number 3, what am I willing to give up temporarily to get what I want? If you can get crystal clear on number 1 and number 2, number 3 will become less challenging. But even people that are instructed to make a vision board, people that are instructed to write down what they want and how they want their future to look differently, are often not instructed to answer question number 3. As a matter of fact, I'm so astounded that no one ever openly talks about what am I willing to give up temporarily to get what I want. Now, some things you have to give up permanently. Some things you have to give up temporarily. I use the word temporarily so people don't shut me down and stop listening, because no one wants to give up the things, the life that they have right now. Nobody wants to give up what they have right now. Les Brown says famously, wherever you are right now, at some point in the past, you made an appointment to be there. And he also reminds us that all of us are self-made, but only the successful are willing to admit it. Vince Lombardi says the man on the top of the mountain didn't fall there. In other words, he climbed to the top of the mountain. But so many of us are not willing to give anything up to get the change that we require. We get crystal clear. We stop saying to ourselves, in question number 2, we stop saying to ourselves, we're taught by our mentors and our leaders, I should say, to stop saying to ourselves, well, I'm not going to dream because I want to protect myself from disappointment. I don't want to feel disappointed, so I'm not going to dream. I'm not going to reach. I'm not going to stretch anymore because I don't want to be disappointed. If we can get people past that, the real concrete day-to-day activity eludes them because they're not aware that you're going to give something up. Here's something you're going to give up. Can I let go of the idea that I have to be perfect at my business? You have to stop being afraid of what could go wrong and think about what could go right. It seems like we get into our business and we want to be perfect on day one. We want to know exactly what to say and exactly what to say to someone that asks us a question. And what if they say this? And what if they say that? And where's this? And where's that? And I want to be perfect. I dare you to be imperfect in your business and watch your success skyrocket. I dare you to be active instead of perfect. I've been in my business for 18 years. I've never done a perfect presentation. I've never had a perfect phone call. I've never had a perfect interaction with a prospect or a member of my team. You're never going to be perfect in the business. Let go of it. It's holding you back. What am I willing to give up to get what I want? Give up trying to be perfect in your business because it's keeping you from the life of your dreams. How about this? Can I let go of the feeling that I'm being personally rejected if someone isn't ready or willing to embrace change in their life, meaning the prospect? Can we just let go of this feeling of rejection? And that's why I spent the first half of the podcast talking about what are the categories of prospects. Why do we have to feel rejected? I mean, it's okay, it's uncomfortable, but be willing to be uncomfortable. There's a quote from Peter McWilliams. He says, be willing to be uncomfortable. Be uncomfortable. He says, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think there's more to the quote than that, but I love that part. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. The rest of it is, it may get tough, but it's a small price to pay for living a dream. That's from Peter McWilliams. So be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's okay if people aren't ready to change. It's okay if they're not interested. It's okay if they won't take your call or return your call. Just be okay with that, because the life of your dreams is on the other side of that. I think we often, I don't know, do we sometimes think when we let go of our critical thinking, we become emotional thinkers, and we say to ourselves maybe, well, I guess the people who've made all the great success, the people who've made millions of dollars in my business, I guess no one ever said no to them. I guess nobody ever made them feel rejected. I guess no one ever said they would be there for a phone call and then weren't. Of course, we know that they've been through that as critical thinkers, but as emotional thinkers, as emotional reactors, we just never consider that. Of course, everyone who's had massive success has been willing to be uncomfortable. And also, as we're talking about this idea, number 3, that you're writing down, what am I willing to give up temporarily or permanently? Can I give up some activities that don't serve my goals and dreams? For some of you, that's, party time, hanging out, having fun, being social. There's been times that I've had to say no to things, again, temporarily. But you know what? When I had a full-time job and a part-time job and I worked 80 hours a week, I said no to everything I wanted to do. I missed birthdays and holidays. I worked retail. So anything that was on the weekends, basically, I had to say no to. I couldn't be there. And it got to the point where people just stopped inviting me to things because you know what they would say to each other? Well, he's not going to be able to go because he always has to work on the weekends. I was being excluded. All I'm saying is maybe you can give yourself a little bit of grace, a little bit of time away from the things you want, party time, the football games, or other sports on television, just temporarily so that you can have access to anything you want in the future. Now I don't miss anything. I don't miss birthdays, weddings. I don't miss anything. I can make anything happen. And you know what? That might be in my neighborhood or across the country. My wife and I, we've been to weddings, all the way over in California or whatever. We can go to things because we were willing to give up something temporarily to serve our goals and our dreams. Henry David Thoreau says, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. And yet so many people won't give up time from a single thing. They've got a bowling league or a favorite show. They want to watch 9 episodes of something on Netflix instead of building the business that can give them the life of their dreams. Listen, if some of this is uncomfortable to hear, I'm glad, because it means you needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. When I started my business, I wasn't in the habit of giving time and attention to my business. And thus, because it wasn't a big part of my day, because it was a business where I couldn't get fired if I didn't do well, it was a business where nobody said I was doing a bad job if I didn't engage in my business, because there was no structure like in my job, it was easy for it to slip away. And what happens, the danger is a day becomes a week, and a week becomes a month, and a month becomes a year, and before you know it, you're not even in the business that you were so excited about starting. Why? Because you're not willing to give up something temporarily. No one is staring at a wall. We all have 24-hour days. No one is staring at the wall for 2 hours that day. I understand that to give your business an hour a day, 7 hours a week, means that time is coming from somewhere. And I'm telling you, you can live your dreams, but you're going to have to make space in your life for your business. And as I wrap up today on the podcast, let me give you something else to consider as you're thinking about number 3. What are you willing to give up? Are you willing to stop quitting? I quit everything before my business. I would sign up for things. I would get late night, kits in the mail from television, call the 800 number and have a VHS tape delivered. I would pay for things that I thought would help me that didn't, or they could have, but I didn't engage with them. Ask yourself this. Am I willing to cancel the quitter inside of me? Jim Rohn says, ask yourself, how long am I going to work to make my dreams come true? I suggest you answer, as long as it takes. That's from Jim Rohn. How long? As long as it takes. The reality is it's not going to take anywhere as long as you think it is if you commit to doing it for as long as it takes. It won't take as long as you think, but you have to commit to doing it for as long as it takes. So many people, they just way overestimate the success they can have in a week or a month when they start their business, and have no concept of the success they could have in a year or 5 or a decade. I started the last decade. I'd never made 6 figures in a year. I hadn't earned $1 million in my business. I wasn't at the top of my company's compensation plan. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't a father. I wasn't an author. I didn't have a podcast. When I started the last decade, none of the things I'm known for were real. They hadn't happened yet, and some of them were months and years into the future. But when I started this new decade, I was completely different. And I am so grateful for the understanding of what could be accomplished in a few short years, of what could change when you're willing to do what's necessary to get the change. And central to what's necessary is reigniting your ability to dream. Aristotle says hope is a waking dream. And isn't that really what we're talking about today? Hope. The ability to hope for a brighter tomorrow, the ability to craft in your mind something grander than today, and for yourself, but also for others. There are so many people looking, searching, praying for hope. They want the very thing that you and I have and know about, but no one has opened the door for them yet. And we refuse to open that door for them often because we don't want to feel uncomfortable. We're worried we'll be rejected. We don't feel like we have the time or the skills to do it. And we measure our success based on what it will do for us. But when we can measure our success based on how many doors we can open for other people, then the reality that you can bring hope and opportunity into other people's lives become a dream come true for all of us. And Sigmund Freud says dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. I challenge you, as my listeners, to build a big dream in your mind and on paper. Imagine it, articulate it, have it so clear that you can touch it and live it. Don't worry if it's crazy. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. Don't worry about being disappointed if you don't reach it as fast as you thought you were going to. Don't worry about the setbacks and the rejections, because the life that you could lead, the reality that you could imagine, the financial and time freedom that could be available to each and every one of you listening is out there, but it's on the other side of this incredible ability to craft a bigger dream. Thank you for joining me today for the Coffee with Jim podcast. We'll see you right back here next week. Good day.